no place to go, nothing to do, no jobs of any kind. So I figured, well, during that 1 year I had at Michigan State, I had learned that there were 7 appointments to the military academy at West Point from enlisted ranks every year. And but the trouble was, you couldn't even apply for one of those 7 appointments until you had a year of creditable enlisted service. So that's why I enlisted in 1930. Enlisted in the Army. I was only 17 when I enlisted. I had to have my parents' consent. And my dad was against it. He didn't want me to, didn't want to give parental consent for my enlisting. But my mother had a friend who had had a vision. My mother was with this friend when she had this vision, seeing me in a uniform. Had told her that she sees a uniform in her son's future. And my mother took that to heart. And that's why she finally prevailed on Dad to let her give the consent for my enlistment. When I went to the recruiting office, there were some 40 people, 42 or 3 people in line, all hoping to be able to enlist so that they could have 3 squares and a flop. And they wanted me because of my year of college, even though it was Depression already starting, already underway. You still didn't see anybody with college run to the recruiting office to enlist. But here I was. I had a purpose in mind. I wanted to get one of the appointments to the military academy to finish my college education. So here were all these people standing in line, and they were very frustrated because they were holding a vacancy for me. Why were they holding it? Because I was too young to enlist without parental consent. It took some doing on my mother's part, but she finally got my dad to give her way and wire my consent. And the recruiting office in Detroit had only 3 vacancies allocated to it in which to enlist people. One for the 5th Field Artillery at Plattsburgh Barracks, New York, one for the 33rd Infantry in the Panama Canal Zone, and one for the 14th, another regiment in Panama at another base. And I was allocated to the 33rd Infantry, which was located at Miraflores Locks on the Panama Canal in the 10-mile wide canal zone. They sent me down there right away. So I get down to Panama, and I was assigned to I Company, the 3rd Battalion of the 33rd Infantry, and boy was it hot down there. Oh man. After I finished my basic training and had been, as the expression went, turned to duty, because I had a year of college, they put me in the orderly room as a company clerk. The outgoing company clerk had been promoted to sergeant because supply sergeant, because the supply sergeant had been sent back to the States. And because he couldn't take that grade with him, he went back to the States as a buck private and left the rank there of sergeant. So I walked right into the early room because I had that year of college, and that stood me in good stead. I spent a total of 2 years, 4 months, and 19 days in Panama, including the time it took to get down there and the time to return to the States, both of which were by ship. They weren't flying people in those days. And I got back just after FDR had just been established as president. And he established a Civilian Conservation Corps where they would recruit idle boys off the streets for 6 months enlistments in the Civilian Conservation Corps, and then under military command they'd be shipped out west to do chores like road building and all manner of cleanup work. The Great Depression was on in the States, and that kept them busy, and it accomplished a lot of good things. I was given a choice of taking one of those Civilian Conservation Corps companies. For some reason or other, that didn't appeal to me, and so my alternative was to take a short discharge. So I did. I took a short discharge. It turned me back to civilian life. I never lost a day of service because the very next day I went over to the recruiting office at 39 Whitehall Street in Manhattan and re-enlisted without loss of 1 day's service. And I re-enlisted for Governor's Island, right there in New York Harbor. And there I went. And I spent over 5 years in that area.